Disruptors, welcome, welcome. I'm Elena Kokorotzis, the license holder for DisruptHR Rochester and the host for today's conversation. At Disrupt Rochester, our mission is to ignite conversations that inspire positive change in both organizations and the communities we serve. And today we are diving into a really important topic about what's really going on. AI disruption versus workplace reality. And I'm joined by an amazing panel of colleagues and friends here. And actually, all of you have been speakers, right? At our 2023 event. I think it was the same event that you were speakers at.
Yep.
So Izzy, Levin, who spoke at our 2023 DisruptHR Rochester event, and he is an instructional designer and former academic administrator, and he's also the co-founder and program manager at Lindern Care. Welcome, Izzy.
Hello.
And my fellow Disrupt team members, Sean Bengry. And Sean has been, Sean, you were first a speaker back in 2019, then again in 2023. And you served at the technology team and also at the advisory board now in 2026. Welcome, Sean. Welcome. And Sean is also the director of learning technology and transformation at DaVita. Welcome.
Very much appreciate it. And it is an honor being here with you, Alina.
Love it. Last, Hernan Chioso. So Hernan is also an HR innovator consultant and founder of ProductizeHR, focusing on AI strategy and adoption. And Hernan, after your 2023 Disrupt Talk, you've been an HR team member serving the technology team. And also last year in collaboration with Sean, you guys created that first real-time AI-generated talk. That was really amazing. So welcome, Hernan.
It's great to be here, and it was 80% Sean, 85% probably.
85% Sean.
We could say it was like 70% AI. How about that?
That's why we're talking here today, right? So AI is everywhere, and we definitely embedded it in that in the talk in April. But, what's the real story? We hear about these words about, the buzz of AI everywhere. And what I would love to get us started with is from where you sit, what are you seeing? What's your experience? Is AI actually transforming HR? Like, what's happening?
I'm going to take this one. And I think that AI is transforming some people in HR, and it's one of those like K-shaped transformations where some people are feeling really empowered and enabled to go and build things with AI that support the HR function. So you're seeing the emergence of some people who maybe they were never developers, but they were builders at heart. And they are using the AI to build things that support the HR function. And then you have the other group that were never builders, that are maybe scared of this, and they are at best tolerating AI. But you have those very distinct angles and perspectives on how the AI adoption is using. There's those who embrace it, and there's those who tolerate it. That if you go into the taxonomy that Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn created, you have the zoomers, doomers, gloomers, and bloomers, right? So it's like 4 different groups that react in a different way, and you need to understand and meet them where they are in the process.
Right. I don't know about transformation. It's certainly disrupting, and I think that's there's 2 slightly different terms. It's things are actually definitely being disrupted, but when we talk about transformation, I think we're talking about something turning into something else, something develops into something else, and I'm not sure that in essence HR as a business function is being transformed. Is it really turning into something else, or does it use new tools to do more efficiently what it already did? So this why I want to make the distinction between disruption and transformation, because it will be a little while for us to see whether the essence of HR has changed because of AI, or just AI has changed the way we do HR. So that's how I perceive it.
Uh,
I want to add one little thing to what Izzy just said. It depends a lot on the organization and how intentional they are with their use of AI.
yeah, both of what you said resonates, especially sitting inside an organization, right? And also looking out for best in class and kind of how or if artificial intelligence is changing the way we work, or is it just making the way we work faster, or is it making the way we work more? So I think those are two, distinctions too. Again, HR is broad, right? HR is really broad. So you see pockets of disruption now. So if you ask somebody, your HRS system, like Workday, how has Workday changed in the last year? They'd be like, it really hasn't profoundly changed. If you ask, how's it changed in the last 5 years? Well, it really hasn't profoundly changed. Workday is still Workday. And it is a system technology. And the reason why I'm going back to that is you would think that would be one of the first things that would be, quote, disrupted or transformed if AI sort of moved in. But at the same time, you look at talent recruitment and creating resumes, personal resumes, customized resumes for a specific job description. If you ask somebody how that was done 5 years ago compared to how it's done now, it's very different. It's very, very different. AI has transformed the way that people look at job descriptions and apply and go through that process, as well as it's changed the way then that talent acquisition recruiters look at those things too. So ways of working are changing. But I think from a enterprise standpoint inside of an organization, it's lagging because the power of disruption and power of transformation is lagging simply because we have these legacy systems that haven't caught up yet to those types of disruptions. That's a broad generalization based on one specific example.
Yeah,
I think it's an
that's
excellent, yeah.
exactly what I'm experiencing too, with not just vendors and trying to embed AI within their tools, but within organizations, there is a lot of fragmentation of data, and that is where the mess starts to happen, because all these systems are either not talking to each other, or if they are talking to each other, the right data is not at the right place. So now all these AI tools cannot perform sometimes. So I don't know. I think this is where HR professionals will have to start thinking about what does transformation look like for them. And I don't even think that we are accepting or realizing that maybe HR is in a transformation kind of mode. And I think we are just so overwhelmed with what HR is today and the reactivity and the amount of work that we have to do, that I don't think that we are able to become strategic and think about this holistically, or even think about these systems, that they are a means to an end, right? Like the systems are tools, but how we use them, and back to Hernan's point about where the organizations are standing and the intentionality behind it. It got to be there. If intentionality is not there, I see reactivity. I see people just being burned out, trying to figure out, how we support the organization with the tools we have.
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to add, Sean mentioned Workday and how it hasn't changed. Well, this year, Workday bought at least 3, if not 4 AI companies, right? So it's possible that what they have realized is that their existing tool is beyond upgrading into AI. What they are doing is that they are, instead of trying to rebuild, which would be prohibitive. I mean, it's a very large tool. What they are doing is they are integrating all these other existing and proven and much more AI native tools there was like the biggest one was Sana, that they acquired, they announced back in August. So maybe they are trying to buy their way into AI. Whether that is going to work, whether that the Sana is going to whether Workday is going to look more like Sana or Sana is going to look more like Workday, that remains to be seen. But there's some changes happening in that space as well.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
I'll say something quick because I want to just riff on everything, the goodness that has all been just said, because to be quite honest with you, I think there are many organizations out there, proud to be one that is not like this, but there's many organizations out there that are doing AI for AI's sake, right? They're bringing in AI tools because they see it as a way to jump on the proverbial market bandwagon and add an AI kind of strategic lens to their, shareholder reports, right? And therefore they are immediately forward thinking, right? So you're adding AI to everything. And to be quite honest with you, because much like computing, internet, mobile, prior to this cloud, etc., it is shifting this way, right? So it is smart to think this way. Yet at the same time, they're shifting without having a problem to solve, right? A business problem to solve. And they're just simply riding the coattails of this AI kind of wind here. And I think that is strategically, you need to have a business problem to solve, right? You need, and where AI can fit right in without starting with that business problem, without starting with that challenge, then you're probably doomed to fail, right? And I'm so glad to be in an organization that isn't like that. But so I would say people are walking into using artificial intelligence and all these tools because, for the sake that these things are jumping to the next point release with AI, right? And we need to have a challenge that sort of said this thing, we are solving this problem. We are doing this thing because AI is an enabler to do this thing better. That's one piece of it. And the other thing I would say is you're right around the data infrastructure. Business problem comes first, data infrastructure comes second, a very close second. It's easy for us to use something like chat. By the way, it's now called chat, right? You can't call it chat GPT. You have to call it chat, right? That's the cool. I talk to chat. It's amazing. Like it's almost become a verb at this point in time. We are using chat because it knows about us. We're putting data in it about us, and it's non-deterministic. It's very creative in nature, and it is a beautiful productivity tool for us to create emails and to create, imagery and media, and to create and to add strategic thought leader, sort of like thought partner, et cetera, in many different things, different ways. But when you translate that to inside, now we're now moving to the inside HR. Again, business problem comes first, but now we have to solve this business problem. In order to solve this business problem using artificial intelligence, I need to know about this business problem. And businesses businesses are just an ecosystem of systems, right? They're macrocosms. And so what happens is, like, you need to have your HRS system talking to your LMS, right? Your learning management system, talking to your knowledge management system, talking to your email system, talking to, right, your meeting recordings, because that's where all of the nitty gritty of kind of where the nature of how everything's connected. And if you're solving a problem, whether you're trying to hire somebody in HR or where you're trying to develop an entire workforce or segment of the workforce, it's not a clean sort of siloed set of data that answers that problem. And right now, you can address a problem, but connecting all of that together and putting an artificial intelligence that would give you a new lens on that and a new look on that across all of those systems, that is something that is very unique in a lot of organizations that I don't think has been solved, right? Because it is just, you don't see a lot of those systems talking to each other. You have these point systems. In other words, this is a good AI for this system. This is a really good AI for this system. This is a really good AI for this system, but the connective tissue hasn't been thought through yet to solve really strong business problems. And I do think companies like Palantir will come in and help you with that, but I think that we're not there yet. So that's how basically just riffing on everything you said, I would say that like the business problem is what people do miss first. And then secondly, a data infrastructure, you need to have that like immediately second to solve the problem.
Well, I want to add to that essentially a business problem is a human problem. That is, an employee noticed something that's not working and starting to think about ways to resolve it. And an AI is just another tool of trying to resolve that problem. So everything, I think, we tend to forget that at the end of the day, AI should serve humans. AI should serve a problem that humans have recognized. And by just kind of adding layers and layers and layers of more AI technology to an organization, you don't really address the issue. I mean, you provide the tools, but you don't really provide the solution, or you don't even identify the source of the problem. And I think that's something that I've been kind of talking about and sharing with you as well, that at the end of the day, AI should serve humans and not the other way around. And when we forget that, let alone talking about all the ethical issues that comes with that, but in terms of efficiency, if you, as Sean said, if you create a product that doesn't solve a problem, what's the point of that? And I think there needs to. It seems like, and what you said, that the experience is such that individual employees address, face a problem and try to resolve it with AI, and then that kind of goes up and becomes maybe a method or becomes a system. And I think just like when you think about the internet, like how internet became a place to express creativity, not because of the people who created the protocol. It was because the people who used it in a way that the people who created the protocol could have never imagined. So I think there needs to be something organic in how you introduce the possibility or introduce AI tools into an organization. Just kind of let it roam free. Let like humans do with it whatever they feel is appropriate, whatever solves their problem, and then turn that into a system. But again, for me, it's always about how AI serves humans. That needs to be the starting point as I see it.
Do you think that it exposes the cracks of can it assist us and help us to identify what are the gaps and either in skills, the human capacity, I guess, or do you think that it could help us in that regard?
Oh, for sure. I think it makes things more efficient, or at least has the potential to do it, but it also exposes, and that's something I think Sean will probably want to talk about, the culture of an organization, right? The willingness to accept new technology tells you a lot about the workforce and individuals within the workforce. So whether AI is going to resolve a certain problem is one thing, but but also the question of whether people are willing to experiment with new technologies and approaches and attitudes, that in of itself has a value, I think.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
you're talking about these are two different aspects, two different perspectives, and one has to do with the strategy of this is a problem that we are trying to solve, this is how we are approaching, and the other one is the adoption. Because you can have a very well placed, strategically placed product, but then you get no adoption because there's other things lacking, like trust within the organization, and that is foundational to people changing behaviors. They need to change and need to believe that the next stage or the next phase or the next way of being is going to be better for them than what it is today.
Uh-huh.
There needs to
Well,
be
I
an
think that's that's fundamental to any transformation, right? It was fundamental to digital transformation. It was fundamental to kind of like just, let's call it cloud transformation. I mean, digital is a very broad term, but yeah, I mean, if you're any large change in the organization on how you do things, you're going to go through that. And yes, and I'm just re-emphasizing that, Hernan, is like change management is because that's a human change, right? It's a behavioral change. It's an attitude change. It's a mindset change of how to use these things. Just because I have a strategic initiative and I've discovered that, this is the 4 things that we're going after that we want, the very broad things that we want to change, whether it's revenue, revenue growth, cost avoidance, productivity gains, et cetera. Like an entire workflow transformation, et cetera. All of that comes down to human change. So implementing it is one thing and the data infrastructure around it, but then those are the first things to have. You need to have those things to get there, but you are 100% right, is that it comes down to, am I bought in? And is this, like, I see this push down, but I think then you sort of like this, humans are resistant to change no matter what, any sort of thing.
But I think it's specifically with AI where the feeling was that I'm going to help implement AI into my organization and then AI is going to replace me. There's a great fear of you help to kind of undermine your own employability. So it comes down again to what you guys said. It's about trust. It's about the ability to a human being trust their organization to not use AI against them, not use technology against them. So yeah, I think it kind of goes back to just human change management and acceptance.
And I mean, I have a hard time with the anxiety because I don't feel it. So it's hard for me to be, empathetic because I've never felt that way, right? Kind of thing, like something is going to take my job. I've always felt sort of an empowered, like it is, I am the master of my destiny kind of thing. And yes, winds of the market may change, but I am the master of my own destiny. If something happens, it's I need to move to a different direction, or I need to gain new skills, or I need to gain a new mindset or attitude or whatever. However, it's real.
It is a real anxiety, though. I mean, a lot of people do.
It is 100% real. And for me, just because I don't feel it, I'm acknowledging the fact that I have seen it in many cases across broad different functions within HR, let alone anything else, other functions too. And it's rightly so, whether it is the truth or not. There are, when you hear organizations laying off thousands of people, and then the message is because AI is mentioned in one of those things, or it's hidden as a kind of like a productivity gains with new technology when they're talking about artificial intelligence. Obviously, right? People are going to be like, listen, Amazon just did blah, right?
Yeah.
Meta just did blah. Verizon just did blah, right? Look at these things. And so I think that anxiety does, it's justified because that's what they're hearing. And they're worried.
I saw a comment a few days ago about somebody saying that corporations have decided that fear and anxiety are not a bug, they are a feature.
That's horrible.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just wonder, is this new or has this always been the case?
But yeah, and how much is the reality that these layoffs are truly because of AI? Like, let's be honest, there was so much hiring happening during COVID and after COVID, beefing up the workforce, especially like at Amazon for sure. That was, I think it was a poor HR tactic, but, at some point they have oversaturated their workforce, and I don't think that AI is the pure driver. I think there is a lot more reasons behind layoffs. I don't think that AI is the only driver.
But on the flip side, I'd say that it's very possible you're right. But if it's really indeed about AI, one of the things, and that goes back to the initial question whether AI is transforming HR, is organizations don't know yet what are the consequences of firing thousands of people and replacing them with AI, right? There's no case studies that show that actually works. Like what happens within 3 months, they realize, oh, actually we do need our human employees. And so there's a lot of experimentation going on here at the expense, of real human beings. But I don't know if like there's this shareholder pressure to become to adapt AI to become efficient without actual experience as to whether it does result in efficiency, right? I mean, how many AI agents can replace how many humans? I mean, I think things are still kind of being figured out as we speak.
Yeah, and I want to add that one of the big news headline earlier this year was about Klarna and how they had replaced customer support with AI, and they fired 700 people, and they replaced them with agents, and now they are hiring people. So because those agents failed, it is possible that they are hiring these people not as employees, maybe as contractors. Maybe that's also a transformation that is happening. That the way of engaging with the workforce is being forced differently because of these changes. But the reality is that most agents, as they are very limited, and they can only do reasonably well and reliably well a limited amount of things. So they are. I'm seeing more and more commentary on this, that agents are not ready for prime time. They are helpful, but they are not ready for prime time to be working on their own. So it's one thing to say I am in charge of doing something, and I'm asking an agent to support me into doing my job, do some research for me, give me back the results. I can evaluate them and use them in my work. But to say you're going to have an agent that is going to do the work end to end, that's a completely different statement, and one that has not been proven that can be successfully.
Yeah. Agreed. I think two things around agents, because I mean, and for the listeners out there around, an agent is a broad term, right? A broad word used to describe a lot of AI capability. Let's call it, right? A lot of it, but at its best, an agent is supposedly, something. It's an AI. It's an AI human, essentially, right? Like, in other words, it replaces a human or a broad job role of a human and by itself. You tell it to go do a thing, and it should do a thing, right? Kind of thing. Like, so, like, if you're, I mean, from an instructional designer, if you create an instructional designer agent, it should go do all the things an instructional designer does, right? Not just one task, right? Not just one, like, it should, you tell it to do it. You basically assign it a project that's come in, right? And it does all the things, right? Or if you're an AI agent that's a recruiter, you basically these are the recs. Like, you would provide a recruiter in your organization. The agent goes out, does all the things, and finds somebody and comes back. Right now, I don't think that we're there. There are pieces to those puzzles that are starting to form. Right now, agents that I have seen, first of all, are solving human tasks. So back to how we started this, they're solving ways of working that the human is working now. It is not providing new ways of working, right? So it's not providing like this revelatory kind of moment where it's like, wow, why are you recruiting this way? You should do it this way. Or why are you building courseware this way? You should do it this way, right? Or, why are you measuring the skills in this way? You should do it this way. It's not doing that. We're basically telling it, hey, do this thing faster for me. Can you do this task, a little bit better for me by gathering all this data and then providing insight? So I'm seeing agents that are hyper trained on tasks and small roles, but and that's where you're getting over some productivity gains. I mean, to be quite honest with you, there is a lot of productivity and efficiency gains. There are a lot of those happening across the workforce. But as these start to be well known, productivity gets raised across, it's like the Red Queen effect. You run fast just to stay in place, right? Because everybody is, it's like the rising tide raises all ships. The productivity gains are like net zero because everybody raises in productivity because everybody's starting to use AI now, right? Just as we started to use email, just as we started to use internet search, etc. So the productivity gains are there. The individual productivity gains are there. I will tell you, I've seen those time and time again. But back to what Hernan says, the jury is still out on agents and agentic workflows for that reason that we were hyper-training it on a task. And the reason why we're hyper-training it on a task right now is goes back to the data infrastructure piece. Is like a lot of times agents just don't have access to all of the things it needs to be doing. And a lot of times it's not ready yet. It's just, you don't have it's not ready yet. An agent can't, if you're thinking about an agent as a human, and if you think about how a recruiter does work or how an instructional designer does work, you think about all the tools necessary and all the brain power and all the decisions necessary to do those types of things and all the systems it needs access to do those types of things, and all the bodies of knowledge it needs and domains of knowledge it needs to basically coalesce into kind of, this is my role and this is how I do it. When somebody gives me a project, I go do it this way. And I'm on my own. And then at the end, I give you a project. I give you the project completion. Somebody gives me a job description. Okay, I need to put this together and then go hire this person, right, with these skills. Right now, I don't think that we have a clear understanding of all the systems needed for that agent, even if we had it, to actually go do that. So agents are not living up to the hype right now. Right now, they are not living up to the hype right now until I think ways of working as well as data infrastructure gets solved for an agent to actually, for an AI to sit on top of all these things and not just separate AIs. I'm talking about one.
Yeah.
That's my opinion right now on what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's messy. It's still messy.
But maybe we're just being a little bit too greedy in the sense that what we expect AI to do. Maybe it's fine, right? I mean, we have hammers and we have nails. They do their job. They don't make our dinners. They don't clean our houses. Nail and hammer do what they need to do. And I'm wondering whether this part of the hype is the notion that AI is going to resolve everything, everywhere, all the processes. But maybe it's fine for it to be a tool that does specific things that makes us more efficient and quicker in our job, and have it be happy with that, in a sense. I know this is not what AI companies are trying to do. I know a part of the hype is this kind of notion that it can resolve everything. It can be everything. But I know that the internet is a great tool, but it's not gonna, save our lives. It's not gonna find us love. It's not gonna give us meaning. It's just like a great infrastructure that we can use for many, many things. But I think part what distinguishes AI, apart from the technological aspect, which is one of the most sophisticated technologies, most revolutionary technologies that humans have come up with, is also the kind of almost the mythology around it, which suggests that it's not only technologically more advanced, it's almost metaphysically more advanced than any other technology. And we expect from it more than we do from any other technology in the past. I know part of it is, the mystery of it. Like, we don't know how it works, and it does feel like magic sometimes. But the other part is also the way that people at the helm, like Altman and Zuckerberg and all those people who say, like, it's the marketing hype, right? This technology is going to solve everything. Let's work towards that. And those who are not going to participate in this effort are going to be left behind. So, a while ago I put like this LinkedIn post about like how we failed to understand AI in the context of the history of ideas. because the way we perceive AI is informed by the way we perceived ideas in the past. And we need to remember that there was never one technology that solved everything, unless, you know, you think about it in religious terms. So I kind of going, it's a bit off topic, but what I'm trying to the way I wanted to connect to what Sean just said is that maybe it's okay to have agents who are very good at performing limited tasks and stick with that, instead of trying to, you know, getting frustrated by the fact that they cannot replace entire human functions. And in this way, maybe people will stay employed, but also will be better employees, you know, because they will have the tools. So, yeah, I know it's kind of touched on a number of things here, but
I
yeah.
also think that there's a subplot to that, and that is a trend where the client of an organization or of a product is not the user, but the investor.
Mhm.
So when you're talking about AGI, you're talking about a bet on the future that everybody's trying to make sure that they don't miss. They don't. It's about fear of missing out.
Mhm.
So these companies are not necessarily. Many of these companies are not necessarily being profitable compared to the investment that in infrastructure and in development that they are doing. But they are funding on the hype and on the people betting on them reaching that milestone of AGI first. And from a sort of philosophical perspective, and I think we already have some conversation about this, Izzy, maybe. I think that this is not new in our history as a species, and as societies. We have been obsessed with this creation of something bigger than ourselves. In Greek mythology, there was Prometheus, and then there was the story of the golem in I wrote a piece about Jorge Luis Borges' story about the golem in Praga. Then there's in the Victorian times, it was Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Right? Electricity was the next big thing. Electricity in the Victorian times was what AI is today. It's the same paradigm. It has the same shape. And now, when we are talking about AI, the Frankenstein, the golem of AI is AGI.
I think I love what you said, and there's this balance that I always am trying to justify in my mind. One is the fact that yes, this is the same. You know, history kind of rhymes, and I don't see it as being cyclical. I think it's more a three-dimensional helix, right? It's cyclical, but it's going forward, continue moving forward, upward as a species. But things like when you say Prometheus, I immediately think, okay, it's Prometheus was about fire, but fire fundamentally, you know, is the fundamental technology that was, you know, like harnessed or whatever. But it changed everything, right? It allowed humans to enter places they weren't able to before because of light. It allowed them to stay longer in certain situations because they had heat. It allowed them to defend certain borders and expand their borders because it allowed them to, you know, use it as a weapon. You know, it changed the biology of the human because it allowed them to cook meals instead of and digest them differently, right? So it fundamentally changed society and the human species, and even potentially someone could argue evolution too, right? And then you move that forward to something like, as you were saying, like the internet, you know, so the internet, like we have all these, that's going to change everything. And technically, if you look at kind of where we were a world away, maybe 30, 40 years ago, it has changed almost everything. How we do business, how we communicate with one another, right? how we date, how we exchange ideas and we connect fundamentally. So it has changed, even how I travel. And fundamentally, it has changed. So you could say that has changed the world in a profound way, right? So it is cyclical, and the hype is there. Electricity, to go back to your point. I mean, that's each of these is kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like everything's based on on fire versus electricity now kind of thing is everything's based on that. If electricity went out, we're all done, right? Kind of thing. If you don't believe that, then wait until the power outage. Whenever that happens, you realize how much you rely on something like that. Then if you think about AI, I think we're at that stage again. It is not hype at all. I think this fundamentally will change everything about how we live. It will. I mean, whether that's a 1 year away or using Gates' law, we tend to overestimate what happens in 1 year, but underestimate what happens in 10. I think in 10 years, when we look back at this podcast, we will probably be like, holy crap, can you believe the way that we communicated? Can you believe the way that we did business? Can you the way we met people and that we traveled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it will profoundly and revolutionize everything that we do. I do think it is that technology. I would compare it to the actual computer revolution, right? Computing revolution. That's what I wouldn't compare it to the internet or cloud or whatever. It's it will revolutionize everything. So that's what go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean, if you even the word computer, I mean, to use a skeuomorphic standpoint, even the word computer, I mean, there were floors of people who were called computers because they computed values, right? And we just took that name and we, used it because now it replaced all those people. Don't have jobs anymore, right? You're not sitting in a room tallying numbers and then providing that to a bankroll, right? I mean, those people. So similar fashion. Fast forward. There, I mean, yes, it is going to. Our jobs are going to be different. I don't think jobs will go away. Some job roles will go away, but the net will be the same. Right. Overall, people will create new jobs, just like each of those technological revolutions happened before. It will create new jobs and remove as we move into a new paradigm. So I think that the hype is real and the hype is justified, but we're at an early stage. We have just lit the match. Right. And, for fire, to use that comparison, and people are touching it going holy crap, I just got burned. Right. Kind of thing. And, oh, shoot, the forest just, burned down. Right. Kind of thing. We spent all that money. Shouldn't have done that with fire. Right. Kind of thing. Oh, darn. Right. Oh, shoot. I you know what I mean? I went to bed and the fire's no longer there. Kind of thing. So we're basically harnessing it and figuring out how to use this new technology. Right.
I turn the fire on and it's not cooking for me.
Right. It's why is this thing oh, that's right. The impact of the fire itself. I should wait till this thing boils before I consume it. Right. Kind of. Yeah. So even the indirect and second order effects of AI are even yet to be determined yet. Right. So do I think it will change everything? Yes. Do I think that we are there? No. That's where my vibe is. I know this is going back to kind of riffing on philosophical as well as kind of anthropological, implications, not touching on HR, but just to give us a healthy dose of kind of where we are and setting the expectations.
And as you all are talking, I keep thinking what are these new skills or behaviors that are going to become non-negotiable for us as humans now?
Well, fire was created and we have a whole job employee called firefighter, kind of thing. So, I mean, there will be times where people are we're going to have to check AI. We're absolutely going to have to check AI and have the people that are maintaining it. Back to what Izzy said around, is it the Altman, the Zuckerbergs, and who is actually checking this technology as we move forward into this? Yeah. So what are those jobs? I mean, that would be me trying to predict in 2021 being hey, guess what? There's this really cool job called an influencer. What the heck is an influencer, right? Kind of thing, right? Are you talking about people? Because back in 2001, I was thinking why are people posting something on this thing called MySpace and putting what they just ate for breakfast? Hey, I just ate toast. It's what the hell? Why even put something like that? And now it's everybody broadcasts their entire life. There are literally things called stories to which they tell the story of their life of that day. Who would have thought that would be, those types of roles would exist? Who would have thought a web app programmer right, would be something that would be like a job. So
Mhm.
to be honest with you, I could guess what those are, Alina, but because my guesses would be based on my current understanding of reality as it exists
Yeah.
today, and not at this new reality that we will be in 5-10 years from now. So I don't know.
So we cannot comprehend how this could probably
Some of it. Yeah.
to some extent. Yeah.
Yep.
Which is fine, with that, as you said, that's the same thing that happened with fire and electricity. The difference, though, I think, is it took humanity thousands of years to figure out what to do with fire. It took humanity a couple hundred years to figure out what to do with electricity, 40 years, what to do with the internet. My concern is that there's so much money invested in AI. By the nature of, it just requires a lot of money and there's a lot of risk in it. So a lot of money is being invested. And that means that it feels like it's less organic in how it's developed, in the sense that the people who rule it, the people who are the big companies who created it, have a lot of say about how we're going to use it, which was not the case with fire, right? Fire was just happened and people use it in different ways. It feels there's something a bit more monolithic about AI in this sense, because there's so much risk and so much investment involved in it, so that the people who control it want to have a lot of control. So the internet was amazing in the sense that, it started as a nonprofit thing. It started out of military and academia, and it's like, okay, hey, this is thing, do with it stuff. We don't even know what to do with it. But it seems that with AI, things are a bit more prescribed as to what we as users should do with it. And they come kind of all the way from the top. This is kind of, if the internet was the epitome of a democratic technology, right? It's like everybody has a voice, everybody has access to information. With AI, and I want to sound paranoid, but it kind of, as a happy user of AI, it seems a bit different in that it's much more centralized. It's much more like, even the different models, how different are they really? I mean, the tweaks are there, the user experience is slightly different, but it just feels like things are not as organic as they were with other technologies. So in a sense, it would be easier to kind of predict what the jobs are going to be, because we kind of have the blueprint right now. So it's yeah, I know. Well, what are your thoughts about that? It just feels that it's different in this respect too, that how centralized it is.
Yeah, I had kind of like the opposite sensation, by listening to some of what, like one of the latest presentations by Sam Altman, one of the latest launches of OpenAI. Basically, he finished with, "I can't wait to see what you will build with this," which tells me that they are. It's kind of like, I'm not telling you what my tool is going to do. It's your problem to figure it out. I'm putting this out into the world. It's a solution. You figure out the problem and you apply it. And I think this kind of goes back to the conversation that we had earlier on, the strategy of what problem that you're solving. I think in this case, the companies that are creating these large language models, they don't necessarily, they are trying to create a model that, whose purpose, and I'm using whose, but
Hmm.
it's not a person, but the purpose is to beat the benchmarks and to prove that we are more intelligent than others, that we are closer to AGI, to the point that sometimes they are like they are like a student that is memorizing the answers to the question.
Mhm.
Right? They are not smart. They have just good memory. They are building to pass the benchmarks or to improve on the benchmarks. Not necessarily, which is not necessarily to say that the models are going to be more intelligent.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I mean, as you bring up, good point. It reminds me of a Chris Dixon's book. I don't know if you read Read, Write, Own. It's more about kind of where cryptocurrency is right now, right? And sort of like the kind of why cryptocurrency is where it is right now compared to previous versions of web evolution. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is that he goes through a great explanation of why the internet and the web, which are two different things, one built on the other, but on how they had open protocols. And HTTP and FTP, right, were open protocols that everybody was able to build on top of. And so the competition to which was based on those open protocols, but anybody could have built on those open protocols. Anybody could have built on those open protocols. So it's like the web is open, and you can build on that kind of.
Go figure it
You
out.
can build your tools on top of it, right, kind of thing. And I think so. If you take that analogy now to like what is open, there is open source. I mean, it's crazy how like okay, you get OpenAI, right? You get freaking Anthropic. You get the next thing from Google Gemini. And then DeepSeek from China comes up with something that's open source, and it's about 95% just as good, with half of the power behind it and half of the training behind it. So I do think that there is, and there are, open models that will keep us in check versus your AI kind of overlord, like a human overlord kind of future. So I do think there is a future in the multiverse that will absolutely be okay. And it will provide those kind of like anybody to build on AI. I honestly feel like AI, and it just was, I mean, recently, honestly feel like when AI moves into microchips, which it is very close to right now, then you're talking about anything that has a microchip could have a localized artificial intelligence on it, right? And I think that we're getting to that point. And then it's democratized from there. So, and it becomes a commodity. And then to expand on that level of commodity, if you're talking about Alina and you're talking about what jobs are coming next, potentially maybe you could predict it. The thought experiment I always take is this task becomes a commodity. What happens then, right, to the rest of the workflow? So that, like, as an example, and this is going to hit hard to you, Izzy, from our instructional design background, right? But given the fact that we are on talent development, that's where I kind of key in sometimes is like the fundamental role of the instructional designer, and then the talent recruiter, talent acquisition recruiter, or the performance measurement too. If we're talking about talent ecosystem, back to where I was saying around the instructional designer, what happens when? And don't think about if it's going to happen or not, because that could be a philosophical argument, right? But what happens when the self-paced course, the online self-paced course, becomes a commodity? Just as the internet democratized knowledge, or I shouldn't say knowledge, information, to which people can choose to gain knowledge and wisdom on top of that. But information was democratized with the role of the internet and the web. So that's how new jobs were formed, because people they had access to other people, they had access to any type of information on the real time, they had access to all types of different activities that could be based on top of that, right? And now what we're seeing is potentially the commoditization of specific tasks and roles. And so that's what I like. What happens when anybody in the world could create a self-paced course? Anybody in the enterprise could create a self-paced course, an online course. And I mean a good one, not just like anyone, right? Like a good one.
Well, if you go to Google's Learn Your Way, that's an experiment of what it might look like.
You learn, well, I mean,
articulate.
Yeah, so forget about even like the paradigm shift, because before there was instructor-led training. Before, you would go to a classroom, and people still, I mean, obviously this still exists today, but you go to a classroom, And then now fast forward 10, 20 years when that was the one mode of training was you go to a classroom or you go to a training event. And now you have self-paced courses, right, that never existed before because it's based on infrastructure, a learning management system that never existed before, right? But we have to have a way to track these online objects, right? And so now, I mean, but what I'm getting at is like that never existed prior to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
The AI, what I think will happen is like eventually there will be a new paradigm of what online, quote, online learning will look like. A new paradigm, right? It'll be something different than the self-paced course that we all kind of are just used to, like clicking next to continue or whatever. There will be something different. But in the interim, I mean, like what happens when everybody can create a self-paced course? Like, I mean, forget about the fact that if it should happen or can it happen, but just think about like, you know, just put yourself in the future. Okay, let's suppose this thing can do this, right? Let's suppose all you have to do is throw all of these things at it and say, hey, these are the things I want to teach my people, right? Can you do that? And it creates a course in a matter of a minute or two. And then, so that's whenever I think about, okay, not that the role of the instructional designer goes away. Okay, that job gets disrupted. What new things, what new roles get created? Because now everybody can create a course. And so the same thing I think about recruiting, like if everybody, you know, if the role of recruiter became commoditized, all you have to do is feed the engine saying, I'm looking for this type of person for this type of role. This is the culture I want built, and these are the skills I want to have. And you basically say, go find this person for me, right? And it comes back in a better way that maybe, you know, or a different way than maybe, you know, a recruiter would do it now. So what happens then when recruiters become commoditized? So it's like, okay, like how does that change the paradigm of work? You know, so that's the kind of, so I don't have the answers, but that's the thought experiment I have. Okay, like what happens now? You've condensed talent development, you've condensed recruiting. Now the person, you know, doesn't need that, so they're, you know, basically, okay, listen, all I have to do is feed this engine in. But now, do I need the people that were once recruiter like optimizers to help me find what to put in to optimize to get the right people I need?
Some more strategic skills.
Yeah, that's maybe that's what recruiters become, right? Or maybe I have designers now who are more kind of like, hey, you know, that you should really do it this way because this is how you're going to get the best out of the AI. And you only need like 2 of those individuals instead of like an army of designers. I don't know. I really don't know. And what happens downstream too?
And I don't know either. And I think it's we'll have to wait and see, and pay the price to see the result. But it goes back to a point that I made earlier, and I know, let me repeat myself, is that at the end of the day, AI doesn't serve itself. It's supposed to serve humans. And once that it doesn't work anymore, this is when things are going to kind of start to fall apart. Because if we cancel the human aspect of you know, the interaction you described, Sean, if we don't need a person, if we don't need a recruiter, if we don't need an instructor designer, if we don't need you know, anybody who like, we don't need humans to interact with each other, right? Essentially, what will that do in the sense of like, okay, so you end up hiring someone, you have a team of people. How do they even know how to interact with each other? How do they even know how to work together if everything they do is done through machines, you know? And I'm not trying to sound romantic here in the sense that, you know, things were so much better in the past and technology is ruining our lives, but at the end of the day, there's a function that a worker is supposed to do. And I'm just wondering what happens when we optimize everything to the point where maybe what I'm trying to ask is, do we need creativity in the workplace? Right? Can we have an organization full of technocrats who just do what they're told to do? And
I think we need creativity. Yes, we need innovation.
So,
yes, we need people. And
so
I don't think it's going to change. I don't think it's going to change.
But I think we'll be more connected. I feel like the need for connection will be higher, and I think the need for the human side, the human skills will be higher.
So there's two schools of thought there, right?
Okay.
I want to make, I guess, this point, and Izzy, sorry for jumping in there, but
no worries.
I do feel like so the way that we do banking is very different now. I do not want to go into a bank,
Yes.
right? Kind of thing. I can essentially I can run my entire checking account through my phone, right? I can and if somebody chooses to write a physical check to me, I can mobile deposit that right from my phone. I go into the bank when there are some higher order complex kind of like I need to start or remove an account and or like move money together, or kind of like, oh, my son's going to college, so how do I do, kind of like making sure that his ID is associated with one, and we have like partners. So all those kind of complex kind of things, I need a human, right? But there were armies of tellers before. And one could argue that how is this job going to get done if it wasn't for this human interaction? Right? This human interaction that we need to have, that we people need to have to make sure that we can, understand what the person truly wants, ask them other questions about kind of like, hey, you're depositing this check. Do you know, hey, that, your bank account's getting low kind of thing. But that has changed the way that we bank, but that hasn't reduced the amount of human connection that we still need and is still a part of it. Right, kind of thing, like in a row. So I don't think the human kind of element will go away. It'll just be different. But at the same time, we're at this precarious piece that human connection, to be social is human, and to be human is to be social. And so we're at this precarious point where people redefine, air quotes, connection in a very different way with social media and computers. And even now with AI, freaking just like somebody in Japan just married an AI agent, for God's sakes, all right, kind of thing. So, I mean, what I think that people are substituting for what they need in human connection is this kind of false positive they get with social media. And I'm like connected to hundreds of people. Sure, you are connected, but,
are you?
To quote Sahil Bloom, right? Like, if you were sad or hurt in the middle of the night, who would you call? Right? Do you have those 2 or 3 people that you know intimately, right? That it can do that. I mean, from an HR perspective, and I'm trying to wrap this up because I know that, this is all about HR, this podcast, but I think from a people perspective, empathetic perspective, that human connection will absolutely be needed. But the challenge is going to be will we as humans want to foster that? Seriously. Will we? I mean, so I think, so my opinion, I don't think what happens when everything gets automated, I think the world just becomes a different place. We as humans just sit on top of the automation now, and the work becomes different. Using artificial intelligence as a tool, right? The work just becomes different. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. It's one future in the multiverse. At the same time, I do feel as if, there's something happening on the side where you think social media is kind of ruining the connection of people, and kind of like how we get back to my bank situation, right? Like banking has changed, right? I don't want to be by a human because this was transactional in nature. That is a human connective decision I made, right? And some trade-offs I am giving, what will it look like when AI can generate virtual worlds? When I can say something like, hey, I want to enter a world. I love Harry Potter, okay? So I don't really love Harry Potter, but let's put like, I love Harry Potter. I mean, create for me a Harry Potter world to which I can, go in and meet new people and meet my friends, right? And then send a link to it so that my friends can come over and visit me virtually. Like it can real time do that, and you put glasses on and you're there. Like, and you can just walk in this world that you just created.
The Ready Player One.
Exactly. Well, Ready Player One, yeah, but absolutely, right. That's right. But you won't need. Why deal with the messy human connections when you can deal with AI avatars that are perfectly crafted to what you think you need, right? Kind of thing. So, well, I mean, there's there's my like messy kind of version of the future of work, but also at the same time, watch out for this social connection, this at the fundamental level of humans.
And I think also we need to remember that, I know, stating the obvious, but HR stands for human resources. And I think that at the end of the day, we're dealing here with humans. And the rebranding of talent management, or you know, the different names acquired over the last decade or so. At the end of the day, it's human resources, and for that reason, kind of taking it from the bank teller example, where you know you can replace tellers with agents, but when it comes to the more complex tasks, you need a human, right? Because
For investments, you would
right.
want.
So
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe not. So
Well,
my AI bot's doing pretty darn good, by the way.
so I think we're at that moment where boundaries are getting blurred, where functions are being kind of questioned, where the business and social sciences kind of become all mixed up. Which I think it's just like the fire, right? People got burnt initially. So maybe we're just at this point now where we're just the technology is messy and unclear, and we're just in this phase where 10 years from now things are going to be much easier to talk about and work with.
Yep.
But yeah, there's disruption is certainly the right the right word
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think we need like a part 2 to this conversation, because we can talk forever. And maybe we do this. Maybe next year, this time, we re-record a podcast and then look back and say, this is what we were thinking a year ago. How have things changed?
We're wrong about everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So
taking the transcription of this conversation and like extracting the main talking points, the main arguments, and then just taking a look at them
a year from now, for sure. I would love that. So as we wrap up, though, because I want to be mindful of your time, what is one thing that you want to leave the audience with everything we talked? If there was one thing that you wanted people to like, have in mind as they listen to this, what would it be?
I think it's, for me, it's you shall know them by their fruit, in the sense that we don't know what's going on just yet. We're all participating in this big experiment whose results might, not be clear for another decade or so. But in the meantime, as we take part in this, don't forget to be nice to each other, and like in the most basic human way. These are not mutually exclusive things. I mean, we can try new technologies and yet not lose what define us as humans using that technology.
Thank you, Izzy. That's a really good reminder.
I would go with, don't be afraid, be informed, and especially use your time wisely, because AI can be a great help in making us more efficient in some things, but it could also be a huge time waste. Get down a rabbit hole, creating things that are useless, that are half baked, that never get adopted. So use that wisely, because doom scrolling is not a fair a good use of our time.
I would say be curious. Much like Hernan said, be informed. I would say be curious. It's hard for humans, when something new comes up, to not be afraid. I think that's wired into our evolutionary kind of genes. When we don't know something, we tend to be afraid. But I would say the one trait that has helped most of the people that I know through this around understanding, experimentation, and then true, I won't call it revelation, but a greater realization about what this could potentially be has all started with curiosity. So I would say be curious.
And those are all part of what disruptors do. I mean, I always say, once a disruptor, always a disruptor. And I love what you all said. So be kind, be informed, be curious. I'm also going to say, for me, if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to pause, and it's okay to disconnect, and it's okay to have a digital detox for a while. Like, if you're feeling that, it's okay. Don't put the pressure to. At least what I'm hearing in HR, it's a lot of overwhelm right now. But I love the kind getting us back to the basics, be informed and be curious. So thank you all three of you. And I'm going to pull down the transcript, and a year from now, I'm totally scheduling an hour or an hour and a half for us to record another one of these, because I would love to see a year from now where this, where we are with AI. Thank you all.